15. Pandavas retire timely. We are covering verses 27 to 31. So there is a lot in these 4 or 5 verses. I feel overwhelmed. But we will, I was thinking to approach it in about 20 different ways, but I'm only going to do it in one way, obviously. Whatever way now is that way. Right? So I think we'll just, let's read the Sanskrit at 27. That'll be the one we'll focus on most. Read the English, and then we'll read the English for the rest of them, and then come back to 27's purport. Okay? All right. Deshakalarta yuktani Rittapopashamani cha Haranti smarataschitam Govindha bhitani me Deshakalarta yuktani Rittapopashamani cha Haranti smarataschitam Govinda bhitani me Deshakalarta yuktani Rittapopashamani cha Haranti smarataschitam Govinda bhitani me Deshakalarta yuktani Rittapopashamani cha Haranti smarataschitam Govinda bhitani me. Deshakalarta yuktani Rittapopashamani cha Haranti smarataschitam Govinda bhitani me. So, skip the word for word. Read these translations. See where we go from there. Now, I am attracted. So what does now mean? What just happened? Pop quiz. What just happened? Huh? We found it, yeah. What happened to what was Arjuna? What's happening to him?
Arjuna came on visit to Dwaraka and was quite, let me say, depressed.
Devastated, depressed?
Yeah.
Devapressed. That's a good word for it. What else is happening? Part of depression, lose energy, lose everything.
Also, he was escorting Krishna's wives, but they've been stolen by this cowherd man. He'd been defeated by the man with basically no weapons.
Yeah. Same unbelievable. Because
Krishna's gone.
Krishna is gone. So this, and not only Krishna, the way that Krishna had left was also quite, say, for someone who loves Krishna and Krishna's family, to see how that also happened. And that was, of course, due to a curse, two curses coupled together. The first curse by Gandhari, the second curse by the sages. But just to see the devastation was just as a fish, a big fish swallows a smaller fish, the yadus swallowed, one yadu swallowed another yadu, killed another yadu. There's no worse way to go than family fratricide or family quarrels or family disturbances. Okay, I get it. Here's my enemy. They've killed me, but wow, my own family. So this is crushing, and why is it particularly crushing for Arjuna? Yeah. But why was Arjuna able to relate to that disappearance so acutely?
Oh, he had to win the battle of Kurukshetra fight. That was his whole thing in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. How can I fight my crew, my family members?
His family was destroyed in the same way. So that's a very good key element in understanding spiritual knowledge or understanding instruction, is how does it relate to me, right? So oftentimes we hear a lot of philosophy, we hear a lot of things. How does that relate to me? And so when we make those connections, when we can make those connections, then it can very deeply impress us. So now, using the first word, now, I've just seen this. And I've just explained how much Krishna meant to me in every aspect of my life. I've looked back and I've looked at everything I've done, and I've seen Krishna was a part of it. But now, in this, what was our word? Devastated depression. Now, I'm remembering something. Now something comes to mind. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, Govinda. Govinda is a special name of Krishna, one who gives ultimate pleasure to the senses, the cows, the brahmanas. Govinda, whose very name encompassed and surrounded Govardhan Lila. This Govinda, that personality, Govinda Vitane. Govinda, this Govinda, he talked to me. He himself was talking to me. Because they are impregnated with the instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Burning heart, that depression, devastation, depression. What is the relief for that? Is hearing these words, smaratas chitam, remembering, smaran, Vishnu smaranam, chitam, and taking them very deeply. We're going to come back to this purport. This is one of the amazing purports of this canto, of this chapter. The next verse, Sutta Gosa. So this is the last time. I've been saying this in the last 2 semesters or so, that we're this portion right here. This is like a curtain opening to us. It's a curtain of what is what does a relationship with Krishna look like? But we're not going to get that throughout the rest of the Bhagavatam until the 10th canto. It's just an opening, and here the curtain is closing. These are the last words will be spoken, the rest will be narration, and the rest of this chapter will be the end of hearing about it. And then the subject matter will change drastically just to focus on Parikshit and Sukadev. But here, this glimpse we were given, when the curtains open, we get to see the Lord, or we get to see whatever is behind the curtain. And so we're getting this glimpse, and it's so important that we get this glimpse, because aren't we in the devastated depression? Most, at least speaking for myself, mostly yes. Mostly I'm unhappy with not fulfilling my senses. My senses are always beckoning, and my mind is always wanting something. So naturally, I'm always distressed and always unhappy. But this glimpse of how one can live, even in that case, and then remember Krishna, and still have this really amazing revelations through Krishna. So now Sutta Goswami begins to speak. Thus, being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship. What instructions affect us the most? It's not like on the newscast, or it's not on the boring algebra teacher, or the dry philosopher teacher. It is somebody like our parents, somebody like our friends, somebody like our spiritual guides. They affect us the most because there is this intimacy. They are imparted in great intimacy of friendship for our best interest, for our betterment. They're imparted. They're not just there to show off their erudition or show off something. They're very concerned. We saw that in Srila Prabhupada, how concerned he was. And so he was pushing and always pushing himself and pushing the devotees. Please tell them, whoever you meet, this is Lord Chaitanya, as we're preparing tomorrow for his appearance, whoever you meet, tell them about Krishna. In friendship, in intimacy. Don't just, hey, you there, worship Krishna. No, become friendly with them, become intimate with them. I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something that's very important. That'll have a much bigger impact. And in thinking of his lotus feet, they were imparted in great intimacy of friendship, and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified. We just heard the whole first part of the chapter was his devastation, his depression. Then here, remembering Smaratam Chittam, he is remembering Krishna's words. It's remembering them. He became pacified and freed from all material contamination. Arjuna's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided. Shrinvatam Sukata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Redemption. Trash, yeah. Trash. I looked in the word for word, I couldn't find it, but this is Prabhupada's gift to us. But almost everything is torn out just by remembering Krishna, hearing about Krishna. Rapidly, and it can rapidly happen. Example is Kadvanga. In a moment, he was able to remember Krishna. Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, He just remembered all his pastimes and activities as related to him. And then we just heard yesterday how he was now absent. And in that moment, it appeared that Arjuna had forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. That's Krishna always said, be steady in devotion, don't let happiness and distress take over. It appeared that Arjuna had forgotten that. But factually, this was not the case. And again, he became the Lord of his senses. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, what did Arjuna have? He had this unflinching faith and loving friendship with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. This was his asset. We should take inventory of our assets in our lives so far and be so appreciative of what we have been given and what we have and the realizations we do have. Those are assets. Assets are good. Deficits are not good. We want assets. Because of his spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. But because of the influence of the modes, because we think, oh, there's birth and death and there's happiness and distress, these things weigh on us and they make us devastatedly depressed. Depressed, whatever. I had a good one. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was free from the material form. What a insight here! What a glimpse of this is what a devotee. This is what a devotee feels. Omegana Tamarandasya Vyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuna Tasman Shri Chaitanya Stam Stapitam Nirnabhutare Swayam Rupakadam Pancha Kalpa Trubis Chapivasan Vidya Chapatitanam Pavanidyo Shnabhidyo Namaste Shri Govinda Shri Shri Namaste Vrindavani Krishna Ji Vishnu. So again, we're getting this glimpse, this open curtain of Arjuna. And before I read the purport, I wanted to just wake us all up a little bit, get us involved. Because Arjuna just looked back at his life. It was seriously looking back at his life, specifically his life with Krishna. From gaining the hand of his wife, from all the troubles and tribulations that his family members had at the hands of inimical persons. And then the majority of it was his remembering Krishna on the battlefield, this intimacy and friendship that they had. And so he was looking at this life, and then he remembered the instructions. So that is what I wanted to focus on, is remembering things in times of distress, in times of... So look back, think about in your life, how many times, have we been in distress? And was there a moment when either a specific instruction of Krishna, or not even just Krishna, because most of you are young and fairly new, so instructions that were of a higher nature, that brought you to a higher consciousness, what were those instances? And how did it affect you? And how did it build faith in your life? So I wanted to open that up. That's a question for you all. Yes, we have microphones.
Really early on in my spiritual journey, even before I met the devotees, but was just coming to, like, as you said, I really like that phrase, like higher expansive consciousness. I was lamenting to one of my good friends and mentors at the time, and she was like, "Do you hear yourself?" like you're talking so negatively. Of course, that's all you see. And like the way you speak really affects how you perceive everything. And so from her, I really stopped like self-criticizing and like those self-deprecating comments that I feel like in like material society are so common actually like hinder our spiritual life so much.
Yeah, and sometimes we misunderstand that to be humility, but that's not humility because the focus is still on I. That's
Hare Krishna. So speaking about instructions, and it raising, like kind of raising your heart or raising your ability to serve, right? Advaita Prabhu, I don't mean to embarrass you. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. A few months ago, I was signing up for like a Mangal Arti singing, and Advaita Prabhu said, keep singing. And that simple instruction I took very seriously, and I felt it in my heart kind of blossom into something that was like Krishna was giving me the ability to be able to do something like that. So yeah, I take that very seriously, and yeah, please forgive me. Hare Krishna.
Just after leaving what I consider like the material phase of my life, I found myself halfway across the world at this healing center and permaculture farm in Chilean Patagonia. And I spent some time with the founder of this place, and he was on the path of surrender and non-striving. And I just remember there was this moment we were in a pickup truck together, and he screamed at me, and he was like, my name at the time was Becca. He was like, Becca, what are your gifts and why aren't you giving them to us? And that one instruction, it actually fueled the next 7 years of my life, because I realized even at the age of 33, I had no idea what my gifts were. And in that introspective quest, it led me directly to Krishna. So, why?
One time, my Guru Maharaj gave me an instruction, and later, I'm going to tell the instruction in a minute, but later on, there was another devotee. He was a pujari. He is a pujari at the DC temple. He told me, if you take one instruction of your Guru Maharaj and make it your life and soul, of course, we have to follow all the instructions, but really take one instruction and make it like your life and your soul, then your life will be perfect. And immediately I knew, okay, what that action was for me, because it was such a profound shift when my Guru Maharaj gave it to me. It was actually at the Institute in Gitanagari when he gave me the instruction. In the Institute house, Rajalila, Akagara were in the kitchen, and I was with my two Shiksha Gurus, Rukmini and Madhavacharya, and with my Guru Maharaj sitting. And my Guru Maharaj said, fill yourself up with light, and when you're so full of light, there will be no room for darkness. And he said it like so strongly. I was like, yes. And of course, Prabhupada says at the top of Back to Godhead magazine and in many of his purports that Godhead is light and essence is darkness, right? So when he gives the instruction to fill yourself up with light, that means fill yourself up with Krishna, fill yourself up with bhakti.
Anybody have any scary stories? I want to hear a scary story.
I got a really scary story, but I'm not going to share. I just want to say that the higher instructions that helped me when I was a teenager, I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous pretty early on. And the first 3 steps, I remember I was struggling, like in, using drugs and drinking and running around being a teenager. And I remember the first 3 steps. The first step is admitted we were powerless and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2 is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And step 3 was made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And just remembering what those were like in words without having to like actually apply them. It just every time I remember I've been struggling and looking for a turning point, I just know that turning back to God has always been the solution for me, and that's served me throughout my life.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
About a year ago, so this wasn't an instruction, though really this piece, this purport in this part of the Bhagavatam really reminds me a lot of this, where Arjuna is remembering that, oh, Krishna was already there when he looks back, and it's like, oh, he's in this really deep depressive space. So like about a year ago, I was in a really confused, depressive space, like on the path, they're just like stuck in the mud. It's like, what is happening? And I wasn't chanting yet. I was just on the verge of returning to devotees. And I had this dream one night where I was in some like train station-esque place, and all these trains were leaving for different places. And then above me, this voice came in and was like, man, you know, you have no idea what's coming, but the good part is just about to begin. Just wait, it's coming. And it was, and I have that voice, that reminder, that patience has stuck with me, and it's honestly grown. The more and more I remember that dream, where I just heard this profound reminder of just be patient, just wait, it's coming. It was Krishna, and it was amazing. It was so like reverberant with sublimity.
And when you remember now, what do you feel? When you remember that.
When I remember that, I remember that Krishna has always been with me and never left me. Even when he made me forget, he was always there. And then when I remember it's always him. Even in those darkest, ignorant, material times, or depression DOS times.
Krishna Kripa, you had your hand. It's going to be a Sankirtan story, I know, a Harinam story, yes?
Well, 32 years ago, I was actually engaged to a woman who broke up with me. And that was a very traumatic experience. And I remember I wrote...
How could she?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I wrote our Guru Maharaj sometime after it. I said, I can see I'm making spiritual advancement, because when my girlfriends used to break up with me, I would get drunk. But now I take Mahaprasad and go on Harinam. and he wrote me back, I approve your program of Harinam therapy.
Yo mam pashanti sarvam chamais pashyati. For one who sees Krishna in everything, so everything you see, there's Krishna is there, and you know, and when you see everything, so everywhere you see Krishna, and everything you see Krishna. And when you're in that state, tasyaham, tasya is for you, and aham, I for you, tasyaham, na pranashyati. It's just the opposite. I will not be not seen. It's a double negative, but it's and Prabhupada translates, I won't be lost. You won't lose me. So if we can see Krishna even in those difficult situations, and oftentimes when we're in the midst of them, we don't see Krishna immediately. It's typically when we're either quite frustrated in that situation and we have to turn to shelter somewhere, when we give up And this is, I have a picture. Did we have a picture of Draupadi in here long ago? I think we did. But there is that at first Draupadi in the story we're hearing, and Arjuna's remembering these things too. This would have been a memory of Draupadi as she's hearing the news. But yes, I tried to keep myself from being exposed. I tried and I tried, but they were powerful and they were pulling at my sari. But only when there was no other recourse, she surrendered. Oh, Govinda, the same name, Govinda, please protect me. Then Krishna did. So even in those instances, even in terrible situations, devotees, if we can remember, if we can recall something, that even in this situation, I am there. Everywhere. I mean, everything, every action. And when we're in that consciousness, or when we get to the consciousness, the gender was in a suffering condition. He couldn't move, he couldn't get out. And then he surrendered. And then Krishna was there immediately. Krishna was always there, as Jackson mentioned. He was always there. But it's our realization of that. Because sometimes he is pranashit, he is lost to us. He's lost in our direct consciousness. But then, okay, don't worry of a failure, because if eventually we do see Krishna in it, then that is our success. That is our success. There's a very similar verse to this, and this is an instruction by the sages at Kurukshetra, given to Krishna's father, one of his fathers, Vasudeva. Are you amble enough? Yeah. Let's go to the 84th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's somewhere in the middle. It's just after the sages start speaking. It's a 10th canto, 84th chapter. Anyway, it's a very important, and it's actually so similar to this verse that now I'm attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of God, because they are impregnated. Impregnated means that the potential in there is there, and it can come out when we remember it. So the potential of being relief from suffering is there at every moment if we remember Krishna. And when we don't remember Krishna, then the suffering continues. So and what does Krishna say? Krishna says to Arjuna, this is maybe one of the things that Krishna is remembering, maybe in the 30s. Let's go. Krishna, because Arjuna is saying, he doesn't say which particular verses or which particular words in Bhagavad Gita he's remembering, but we can imagine. All those times. How many times in Bhagavad Gita does Krishna actually say his name? O Partha, O Dhananjaya, O Arjuna. How many times? And when if throughout a class I kept saying, oh Bruce, and this is this, and oh Chambaka, this is that, and oh Krishna Kripa, this is, how much more like of a, you would remember that maybe? Oh, I remember when he directed this thing at me. So Krishna's directing the Bhagavad Gita at Arjuna, and he's remembering it. Yeah, let's go to 30. Let's go to the Sanskrit. I think it begins with cha. Oh, bad. The Shastra Chakshus. Which verse is that, Krishna Deepa? Karmani Shastra Chakshus. It's in this chapter. 1084. I need the Sanskrit. There, 37. Let's go there. Open it up. No, that's not it. 36. Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah. Chipped. Oh, that's in the heart of the Yambai. I'm there for Kavivi. That this is what our instructors are. The Kavis are the persons. The sages. They're Shastra Chakshusha Darshita. You can see me, darshan. We can take darshan of Krishna when we see through the eyes of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when we see through the eyes of Bhagavad Gita. Sugamo Yoga, go to the word for it. Sugamo is such a nice, it's so easy to make that connection. And what happens? Atma mut avaha. To the heart is soothed, the heart is given. Go to the full translation because this is just choppy, right? Learned authorities, the kavis who see Chakshu Shastra, when they see through the eyes of the scriptures, have demonstrated by their acts, by their deeds, by everything that they do, their whole life is a demonstration that is the easiest method of subduing the devastation, the depression, the agitated mind, and attaining liberation, freedom from material, as Arjuna was freed from his material form. He was completely freed from it. And that is, and I love this, this is a sacred duty. Dharmash, go back, it's Dharmash, back up. Dharmas Chatman. This is a sacred duty of everyone who is a person. Raise your hand if you're a person. Okay. All right. So this is a sacred duty. This is our duty. And this duty, generally duties are not fun. They don't bring any happiness. But this is a duty that brings joy to the heart. It gives us relief from those material encumbrances that we are identifying with again and again. In the same words, they were relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. This is Arjuna's last words that we're hearing in this part of the Bhagavatam. So, yeah, when we can come to it, and this, I'm not going to get to it, but please today read this purport. This purport is giving us the inspiration and then showing the necessity for us to read Bhagavad Gita every day. Read Bhagavad Gita every day, because in it you can just imagine, and this, I always say that this is the most moving and emotional chapter of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, at least for me, because this is a person who is, I can relate to, who's apparently he's suffering, although Prabhu says it's an apparent thing, but for me, I am suffering. And if I can remember words, by special mercy, boy, do we even think of that? How special the mercy is that Krishna is actually in our heart? What a special mercy that is. We were at a little gathering last Saturday, and there was a devotee who reminded me of this amazing story. And it's not exactly on topic, except for this point that Krishna is with us always. So there was a king. In old days, kings had polygamy was okay. You could have multiple wives. So he had 4 wives. And his first wife he was like always doting on, always giving everything and just giving and giving and giving and giving to this wife. And in his second wife, he was very, very proud of her. And so he would take her out everywhere and show her off. And, oh, look who's on my arm. Very proud. And the third wife he was always attentive to. Always attentive. Are you okay? Is everything all right? And his fourth wife, he neglected. Didn't care practically a bit. But she was still his wife. So the king fell ill. He was going to die, and he was on his deathbed. And of course, in those days, they believed in multiple reincarnation. So he went to his first wife, the one that he was always doting on, and always giving and giving and giving. Said, "Oh, when I go, will you follow me?" No. When you go, I'm gone. Second wife, the one he kept bringing out to everyone. "Oh, when I go, will you come with me?" She said, "No. As soon as you go, I'm going to remarry. As soon as you go, I'm going to." And the third one, "Will you come with us?" She said, "No, I will go as far as the crematorium. Once that's done, then we're going to go on our own. I'll go on my own." But the fourth wife said, "Yes, I'll follow you. I'll follow you anyway." So the first wife was the body. No matter how much we give to it, no matter how much we put attention to it, and we give a lot of attention to it, even if we show we don't, but we do. We never miss that prasadam bell. But as soon as we die, it's gone. It is a thing of the past, never to be regained. The second wife is your possessions. You like to show off your possessions. You bring your possessions. But as soon as you go, they become somebody else's possessions. They remarry, so to speak. They're given to others. Remarried, gone. No real connection to you. Third wife, your family members, your friends. Yeah, they'll go as far as the crematorium, but then they'll go on their own way. But that fourth one is Krishna. He will never leave. He will always be, even when neglected. Even when neglected. Now, this parable has been told in different ways. Sometimes it's Krishna, sometimes it's the soul, but I like the Krishna one. That's what I'm telling you. It's Krishna. He is always with us, even when neglected, even when we. If we just say Hare Krishna to try to get us back on track, he is there. And he's also in the one named, he's in the bus form. But he is there. And even though we neglect and we don't, what is it? My son called it something. He called it endless scrolling, what they call it? Doom scrolling, yeah. We spend so much time, but just imagine if we heard some of these instructions that are hitting Arjuna's heart to the core. Imagine that. If we put a little attention to that. And again, I like to think and contemplate which of those instructions is Arjuna remembering. That evam nukam partam, I've shown you special mercy, or ham sarvasya prabhu, I'm the source of everything, or so many verses. Cha Arjuna, how many times is in Bhagavad Gita, Cha Arjuna, to you Arjuna? So this is our task, that when we're in situations, and it's a practice, that the more you read, the more then obviously you'll have something to recall. When you see the material nature act either locally, down the street, or communitively, or nationally, or internationally, we see all this conflict, we see all this horrible, but we sarvachas hai ishtadeva spuriti, those who can see with the eyes of the scriptures, they can see, they can determine, oh, this is exactly what Krishna says. When we don't focus on him, we'll focus on ourselves, and in that focus, there's conflict. Devotee likes to give the example, like, everyone thinks, that I am the center of the world or everything, right? But we cannot convince even one other person of that. And so just imagine all these centers walking around, bumping into each other. There's going to be conflict. Thank you very much. I saw a hand was raised. Did you have a question? Yeah.
Verse that we pulled up here. Can you explain more what was the
setting?
Yeah, the easiest method. And I also pulled up the purport, and there's no purport on that one or the verse before it.
Yeah, actually, there is a little purport in the Krishna book where Prabhupada thinks this. But yeah, the easiest method is to see through the eyes of Scripture. So the Shastra Chakshus is the Sanskrit, seeing through the Scripture. So Arjuna, he's seeing all of this has happened to him, and then what happens? He's remembering the Scripture, our Scripture, Bhagavad Gita. He's remembering. Oh, this, there's so many verses in the Bhagavad Gita to explain material nature, the interactions in material nature, or the coverings of the soul, or our forgetfulness, or our relationship with Krishna, and then our activities of what we should do for Krishna. So that is throughout. And when we remember those things, as we heard some people volunteer of them remembering things in times of difficulty, then that is seeing through the eyes of the Scriptures. We see differently. Is that helpful? And if you look in the Krishna book, there'll be, I think Prabhupada does state something about, and if you just look up, Shastra Chakshus, there's a lot. Prabhupada quotes this verse throughout a lot of his lectures, actually. Krishna Kripa.
You were talking so much about how simply by remembering Krishna we become free from all material problems. It reminded me of a couple of really wonderful verses I just felt I had to share. One is simply by giving one's oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness.
Yeah. How many, again, what is the purpose of this first canto? The second chapter, it's like so much of like hearing, how important the hearing is. And then Shravanam, Kirtanam, right? We hear, we chant, and then Smaranam, Smaratam. We have to remember these things because we're not just parrots that we hear something and repeat it, but we have to remember it when it is that time when we need to hear it. When we're in that distressful situation. Hear that, we recollect it. And we have this example, this curtain is closing, but we're seeing this last example of this devotee so intent on Krishna that everything became rectified.
And one more.
Yeah. Okay.
Engaged constantly in chatting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sadhus who do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities.
No, that would be one of your favorites. So,
That Mahavishnu Goswami from Gujarat, he liked to quote that one.
yeah. Jackson, you had something?
Just last thing, give one, say, really fired up. Why? How is reading Prabhupada's books, the Sastra and Scripture, the easiest way to speak? I feel like that was a really good point. How is it?
Because Prabhupada is speaking to us. Just as Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, it was very easy for him to remember that. And Prabhupada, how many times has he said, I'm doing this is for my devotees. It's not just for you to go out and pass. You need to read these books. And so when we read them, and Prabhupada is also, he is teaching us in certainly closer to our time and place. And so there's a lot of examples, and a lot of instruction and advice for us how to do these. So many of things. Just like when there's a purport we can't relate to, a verse that we can't relate to, the purport typically is there to help us relate to it. And that is the purpose of the purport. And Prabhupada would say, there is no need for commentary on the scriptures, but here's when the reason is. And he gave the example that if you say, oh, there is a town on the river, you think, I've never seen a town on top of a river. But no, the purport is, it means the town is on the bank of the river. And so, it becomes clear. So when that's how he's saying that his commentary is like. He's just explaining the same thing, but in a way that we can understand. So, and even that, for me, there are many purports I don't understand. And it's okay, we could say, I don't know. That's not a disqualification. I don't know what he meant by this particular statement of the chapter Vyuha's expansion into the, these are very technical things. But by 7, we don't have time. 7:14, 3 and 4. Read that purport. 7:14, verses 3 and 4. That is, I did glance over it this morning. That is like the Prabhupada is giving such an inspiration of why we read over and over and over and again. That we see new lights in the Bhagavad Gita. Such a inspirational to our sadhana. And we don't. Okay, I've gone over, and we have such a wonderful sadhana. So